Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me run down all the new things announced at the Worldwide Developers Conference today. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to macmost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So today's keynote at the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference was a long 1 hour and 45-minute list of new features coming to macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and other Apple operating systems and devices. So let me run down the things that I think are the most notable. First, let's get right to it and the name for the new macOS. macOS 12 will be called macOS Monterey. So as for what's new, well, everything's really integrated between all of the different operating systems. So it doesn't make sense to talk about what's new in macOS or iOS or iPadOS because a lot of them go across all of those. So let's start by talking about FaceTime. So in FaceTime on those different platforms there are a bunch of really useful new features. One is spatial audio, so you actually hear the person talking from the direction that they are on the screen. So someone in the upper right hand corner of your screen will sound like they're in the upper right hand corner of your screen. You also have new audio modes, voice isolation versus wide spectrum. So you can decide if you're in a noisy environment to have FaceTime isolate your voice. And then the biggest new feature is something called SharePlay. So while you're talking with other people over FaceTime, you could share media or your screen with them. So for instance, you can share music in Apple Music and everybody in on the conversation will hear the music in sync. The same thing with video playing in the TV app. So you could all watch a TV show together. And if you want to share your screen with somebody, you could do it now in the FaceTime app. Now the next set of new features Apple is calling Focus, and it's really an extension on Do Not Disturb. So before with Do Not Disturb you could turn it on and certain notifications would be silenced. But now with Focus you can create these profiles. So you can have a work profile, a home profile, a nighttime profile, a relaxation profile, and set each one for what notifications get through and which don't. Now in the Photos app there's a big new feature that introduces a whole bunch of new functionality, and that's Photos can now see and understand text in photos. So for instance you'll be able to search for text that appears in a sign in a photo. Or if you took a picture of a whiteboard or a document you should be able to search and find that. Not only that, but in the photo you should be able to select and copy and paste the text that's there. And Photos will recognize more things in your photos and give you options to be able to look things up that it finds. Like for instance if there's a cat in a photo you may be able to get more information about what breed of cat it is. And also those memory slideshows that use the canned music now will be able to pick up music from Apple Music and use actual real songs, and you can customize it as well. And it will go with like the tempo and the mood of the song. Now an app that's getting a major improvement is Notes. So Notes is adding a feature called Quick Notes that works on the Mac and on the iPad. And this allows you to quickly just add a note, but when you're using it in a place like say Safari, it will know that the note is linked to that page. It seems that when you go back to that page in Safari, your note can be brought up again. So you can take notes on individual web pages and they're tied to that page, but they also appear in the Notes app as well. So Apple is adding a plus to iCloud. It's called iCloud Plus now, which is what we already get, and the price isn't going to change. It looks like Apple's adding a VPN service to keep your web browsing private, and also be able to create maybe unlimited email aliases. So you can keep creating these new email addresses and using them in various places, and they're kind of disposable. They all just forward to your real email address. So a cool feature, it looks like it really begins with the Mac but also can be used on the iPad, is a universal control. This means one mouse and one keyboard can control multiple Macs and an iPad. So say if you've got your MacBook next to your iMac and then an iPad next to that, you could just keep using your regular keyboard and mouse or trackpad across all three of those devices. It doesn't just allow you to use the same cursor that moves between all of them, but you can even drag and drop between them. So basically like Sidecar but seamless, and including Macs as well. Another app that's going to see a big change is Safari. The way tabs look are going to be very different. Matter of fact, the whole top of Safari is going to look very different. You're going to have each individual tab kind of have its own address and search field at the top. So that's all integrated in there, and then tabs can be put together in groups. So you can have a group of say 5 tabs. You can name that tab group, close all of those tabs and create another tab group for another purpose, and then have those two groups and switch between them. And then that all syncs on iCloud, so you can see that on your iPad and iPhone as well. Also, Apple is going to bring Safari extensions to the iPad and iPhone as well as on the Mac. Now, a big new thing on the Mac that a lot of people are going to be excited about is there will be a Shortcuts app for the Mac. This won't replace Automator. They said that a few times. As a matter of fact, the two will work together so you can create Automator things that then can be called by shortcuts. So the idea is that this looks a lot like the Shortcuts app that we have on the iPad and the iPhone and will probably work in a very similar way. But I'm predicting it'll be a lot more powerful simply because the Mac can do so much more. Now, specific to the iPad, it looks like Apple's really going to try to address how confusing multitasking is on the iPad. They're adding a new control to the top of the screen that gives you direct access to things like split view. And you'll be able to simply replace one of the two halves of the screen with another app in split view as well. So I think it's going to get a lot easier for people to understand how to use multitasking on the iPad. There's also going to be something called the shelf, which is kind of like minimizing things to the dock on the Mac. So you can kind of minimize a screen of an app and it will be in this shelf that then you could bring it back up again. And also Apple's bringing the iPhone feature of the app library to the iPad. So you finally be able to hide some of the home screens or just rely on the app library or alphabetical list of apps rather than having all your apps in folders or lots and lots of home screens. The AirPods are getting some interesting features as well. There's going to be something called Conversation Boost, which will allow people to focus on the person that's in front of them talking and reduce noise. And Apple is also saying that location tracking for AirPods Pro and AirPods Max will be better, and there's also going to be a separation alert if you accidentally leave your AirPods behind. So those are the things I think were most notable. So here are just a few more things I think are worth mentioning. One is that your Mac can now be an AirPlay destination, so you can actually AirPlay from an iPhone or iPad or another Mac onto your Mac screen or using your Mac speakers. The Maps app is looking better and better with a nighttime mode, more detail on cities, a interactive globe mode, and also this new feature on your iPhone where you're going to be able to use the camera to kind of scan the area so it can figure out exactly where you are and give you directions, like say for coming up from a subway station. The Translate app on the iPhone is now coming to the iPad, and it looks like there's this new interactive talking mode. iCloud is getting a new recovery mode where you can give trusted people the ability to help you recover your account. The Health app has two new sharing features that are interesting. One is a private sharing mode between you and your doctor, and another is a private sharing mode between you and family members, either kids or parents, so you can help keep track of somebody else's health. There's some updates to the Apple Watch as well. The one that I thought was most interesting is the ability to use portrait photos as a watch face. And portrait photos kind of act in 3D with the person's face appearing above the time and the background appearing behind it. Oh, and there's one more feature that I thought was worth mentioning, and that's Swift Playgrounds, which is an app on the Mac that allows you to play around with the Swift programming language and learn how to program, is coming to the iPad. But not only is it coming to the iPad, but it's going to allow you to actually create full apps that you can then submit to the App Store. So for the first time you're going to be able to use an iOS device, in this case the iPad, to create an app and submit it to the App Store. It won't just be Macs anymore. It'll be interesting to see what type of apps that you can create with only Swift Playgrounds on the iPad versus the type of apps that you can create in Xcode on the Mac. There were other announcements for developers as well. For instance, the introduction of Test Flight for Mac apps, and a new set of concurrency commands for Swift, and a new service called Xcode Cloud, which will allow developers to more rapidly test and deploy apps across all sorts of different Apple devices. And just as every year, the new versions of macOS, iPadOS, and iOS will be available for developers pretty much right away. There'll be public beta tests coming this summer, and then all these new operating systems will be launched in the fall. And if you really want to know about everything that Apple introduced, well, the list is huge. I could keep going on and on. Your best bet is to simply watch the recording of the keynote and you'll see what I mean. It's just basically a rapid fire list from different Apple executives talking about all these different new features and all the different parts of the Apple product line. But hopefully this summary acts as a way to quickly bring you up to speed on what's new. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.